All right, book lovers, we're back with part 2 of our Onyx Storm recap. And right now, things are not looking great for our characters. Last time, we covered everything from Xaden's struggle to control his vet inside to Violet's relentless search for a cure. We followed them through their journey of different dangerous side quests, unexpected alliances, and some shocking discoveries. Some of the things that we included were things like the truth about the marked ones, the mystery of Violet's father's research, and times when Xaden lost control. Just when things couldn't get worse, our squad's desperate mission to find the missing dragon breed completely fell apart. Where we left off was the Irids had rejected Andarna, Riddick discovered Xaden's secret, and their once promising quest ended in failure. Not only that, but we're going to pick right up where they returned to Basgiath to even more bad news.
All right. So at this point, they just left Zenalia, and then they went to this rando island.
To the other islands.
So at this point, the dragons have disowned Andarna again, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna leave you." Yep. So they're like, "Well, we got to go back to home. We got to go back to work because at this point, we're like, we know that they've been fighting a war. Like Rihanna and Sawyer have all been left behind. Yep. They've been fighting on their front while still going to school." And we have nothing else to do here. Like, our work here is done. We are left hopeless. That's what that's the impression I got. They're like, well, we're up a creek.
Home.
We're up a creek, so let's go home. So they go home, and like you said, they're like, oh, we're gonna get court-martialed. We're gonna get, and then
they get like interrogated, but then they find out like nothing happens.
Yeah.
So then they're okay because they do have information that they need. Of like, we found the 7th breed.
Yes.
They're not gonna help us.
Yes.
We got allies, but they're on their way.
And I don't know why they don't get punished. Like, there was something. Was it because he's the Duke and he's like, there's nothing you can do to me? You can't touch me?
So.
I don't know what it was.
I don't know. I think Atos still tries to like...
Oh, Atos is like, I'm going to get you in the end. And you're like, okay.
You're like, okay.
Okay. We're still doing this?
Yeah.
And so they get reunited with Rhiannon and Sawyer. And at this point, Riddick knows that Xaden is
a Venin.
And they're like, you
have to tell everybody else.
You have to tell.
Well, tell Sawyer and
Rhiannon. And he was like, if you don't, I will. At this point, did they already make the agreement? Now, we've known throughout that there's quite a few people, not quite a few. Violet's not the only one who knows.
Yeah, Imogen, Bodhi, and Garrick know because they're there to keep Xaden controlled and to keep Violet safe.
Yes. And there's little Easter eggs of, again, there's so much going on in this book. There's little Easter eggs throughout, like random things that are gonna have a big impact later on that you don't think at the time. Like little things like, for example, Arik knows all the languages and he's like, well, I've been trained up for this my whole life. And he still doesn't have a signet. He still doesn't have one that's been released yet. But there's been Easter eggs of like little things like he just knows things that you're like, why do you know this? Yeah. And we move on. It's kind of the same way I see it as like in book 2, every time Xaden was like, oh, did I say that out loud? And you're like, no.
Or in book 1 when he says that stuff. She's like, oh, I guess I said that out loud. And he's like, uh-huh.
Yeah, and they're honing their skills.
Intensic.
Yeah, you find out he's an intensic. And they're honing their skills.
Oh, that is one thing.
He is starting to hear thoughts out loud.
Yeah. Yes.
Like at this point in time, there's been a couple of instances where she has said, "Did I say that out loud?" And he's like, she was like, "I must have said that out loud. Yes. I was thinking it so hard, I must have said it out loud," because Xaden will respond to something she was thinking. Yeah. Then there's other things like Garrick.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, all the marked ones end up having second signets.
Yes.
We found that out, I think, earlier on.
Yes.
That some of them do, not all of them.
Yes.
And it wasn't because some people thought it was because of their rebellion relics, because a dragon fired that onto them. That's what it was. But it was actually because the dragons, Sigel confirmed, like, we sought out people that were in our last rider's bloodline, because when that happens, you can bestow a second signet. Or you go crazy.
Yeah.
So
like
the dragons picked them on purpose so they could have more powerful riders to fight against Venin.
Yes.
So we find out some of the marked ones have second signets. Like Garrick is a distance wielder, which is one of the big 6.
I know.
So we've got 3 of the big 6.
Yes, because there's instances where it's like, how did you get here so fast?
When he does that when they meet Theophany, she's like, "How are you here?" And he's like,
He's like, I got notice that I had to, like, Xaden
it takes 8 hours to fly here, and we just found out 30 minutes ago. And
yes.
It's like, oh. So he's a distance wielder. He can walk, like, it's like apparating. You can just like appear at a different spot.
Apparating. Yeah, you could just appear.
Imogen has one, but we don't find that out until the end.
Yes.
She's like an earth wielder, stone wielder.
I was going to say, what is hers?
Stone wielding. She like pulls up the earth from the ground and like makes a shield.
Oh, I would have thought she would have made that her main one, and then the erasing the second one.
But apparently, earth wielding is also one of the big six.
Okay, so I feel how many big six are there? Like, yeah.
And then summoning apparently hasn't been seen in centuries too, which is Rhiannon's. And so there's like a theory going around of like the big six will be there in book 4 or 5 because that's how they fight against the venom is like when all of those
when they all work together. And so and you come find out, like with Riddick, how everyone has been honing their powers. They're getting better and better. So like his isn't just ice, now he can suck water out of anything. Same with Rhiannon, like she, in book 1 and 2
through walls.
Yes, like it used to be really hard for her to summon from here to there, and now it's like she can summon things from like really far away, or even even from completely different places now. Like it's not even just through the wall. It's like because she can summon something. I don't remember what she does at the end. She does something big at the end, but
she takes something out of Taryn's leg. It's just really huge.
Oh yeah, it's like a thorn.
Yeah, like a wyvern claw.
Yes, that's what it was. And she was like, "How would you do that?"
Massive.
She was like, "I've been honing." Yeah, it's like the size of a car.
She's like, "I got really good."
Yes. And so, anyways, they reunite, and Riddick's like, "You must tell them, or I will." Now, Imogen and Garrick and Bodhi, they all know Xaden's a wyvern a venom, because at the whole time they're also trying to, and this has been throughout the entire book, they're like, y'all shouldn't share a room together because he could lose control. Like they're constantly trying to get them to like break up or change their sleeping habits, whatever. So they all know. Violet knows. Well, now Riddick knows.
And Brennan.
I was gonna say Brennan knows.
Brennan knows because he's been helping Xaden.
At this point, right now is when it's been happening.
Legit been trying to help or trying to find a way to cure himself.
Yes, and it really comes up after the oh my gosh, the seventh dragons reject
Andarna.
Yes. So when that happens, and he feels like it's his fault, he gets all broody, and he has kind of a fight with Violet per usual. And Violet thinks he's given up hope. He's like, I'm hopeless. It's because the whole book, he's like, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
And everyone's saying that throughout. He's like, when it happens, I need you to know how to kill me. When it happens, I need you to know how to use my shadows against me. Like, he's training her this whole time. Well, after the seventh breed of dragons give up on Andarna, and he feels it's his fault, he's like, I'm done. Like, this is it. And she feels like he's giving in the towel, and she's like, the second he gives up hope, he is hopeless. Like, it's done. Well, that's when we don't know on the back end.
Different things.
Yeah, we don't know that, like, behind the scenes, he's gone to Brennan, and he's like, can you siphon it out of me? Kind of, because that's what the other healer did to Jack Barlow all throughout book 2, is like
Nolan.
Nolan was like keeping it at bay.
He was trying to like heal his soul, is what they said.
Yes. So Brennan's like, no, he was already too far gone. But like, so we're finding out later on behind the scenes, Violet thinks Xaden's given up hope, but really he's with Brennan. He's like, I will do anything. And they are working together. So Brennan knows. Mira does not know. So
Mira finds out and
she
wants to kill him.
She will.
Yeah.
Does she know it yet? Like, Rhiannon and Sawyer find out before Mira, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, because they are immediately on Violet's side. Like, no one's trying to actively kill Xaden yet. No one's like, we're going to kill him. Everyone's like, we get it. Riddick's like, you should, but I get it.
Yeah.
But what I do love, and this is where I think Riddick's personality has just come up throughout. The second he finds out, when he figures out that Xaden is a venom, he's like, you have to let me tell them. You tell them or I'll tell them. She's like, I'll do it. But he's also like, I need to, he sets such clear boundaries for someone who is very ridiculous and silly. He's like, Violet, I need a hard and fast line. When is he too far gone? You need to let me know. If you don't tell me that line, I'll pick it for you.
I can't
help you. And so she does make a very clear line, finally.
She says, whenever he hurts me.
Yes.
Which hurt, does that mean physically, emotionally?
Who knows? Who knows with Violet?
Like, at the end of the book,
it's not as clear as I think it could have been. He's like, it's like the second he does X, Y, and Z. But anyways, I do love how Riddick is like, I need it. I need this for you. Because I will say that's something I love throughout this book and the whole series is that, like how powerful a relationship of a squad is.
Yes.
And I love that.
Or like the family that you choose versus the one that you've been given.
Yes.
Yes.
But like it extends to the Griffin Riders when they became, because when they all joined the same college at that point, they're, Erasia College. It's like, now Kat, you are my squad.
Yeah.
I might
and that's
hate
also
you.
in the background is like all the poor meal flyers get to now stay at Basgaeth, and they're pulling in people from poor meal. Although the king is like, please don't come, and Zayden's like, you can come to Tirandor.
Yes, because the king is like,
So there's still like politics behind it.
there is like Navarre is still not letting
poor meal citizens.
yeah, they're not letting refugees in. Like they're like, no.
Paromish.
Yeah, Paromish. Yeah, they keep saying you're not going to let Paromish refugees in. No. So Tirandor
But
is
they do
allowing
want
them.
their help in fighting the Venom.
I know.
But they don't want them to come.
I know.
weird.
But Zayden's like, I go. So Zayden is actively defying Halden, King
Tari.
Like he is actively in their face like, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Like I am going to defy you. So he's just doing his own thing. I love that for him. But they come back and, oh my gosh, all these names. Riddick's like, tell him, you tell him, or I'll tell him. So they finally bring in Sawyer and Rhiannon. Now, they don't tell the Griffin squadron, do they? Like, it's just Rhiannon and Sawyer. It's not
them.
Sloane. It's not anyone else.
It's the main four.
It's the main four.
Yeah.
So they all know it, and they're like, okay, we trust you, Violet. Like they don't have it out for Zayden. They're like, we trust you. But the second he messes up, he's dead. He's dead to us. Okay, so they come back to school. They got homework again, like this room thing in the background.
It just comes back to like they're doing normal classes. He's the professor.
Yeah.
But then he also leaves a lot. We find out because he's trying to help himself with Brennan.
Yes.
But then, so Garrick and Bodhi help teach signet wielding class.
Yes. And why is the rune homework important? Because like they mention it a lot, and it's like it's
because the
important
runes can give magic when you don't
have magic on an island too, though, right?
Yes.
Like they can have. So if they make this rune of like
levitation.
Yeah, or they have like silencing bubbles kind of thing, right? If they take that to an island without magic, it still works.
They found out that some of them still
work. So it's an important skill, but it's also very random.
But it also helps like the Griffin Flyers magic isn't signet power level magic, so it helps them even the playing field.
Yes.
And it lets those without magic still have magic.
But they can also be extremely powerful runes because like Zayden
the
has given
Wardstone
her,
has runes on it.
Yeah, and Zayden's given her things with runes that are like protective if she didn't have.
protect against Cat's signet of mine.
Yes, like daggers can have runes because that's the whole thing too. Is they can be imbued, but they can also have runes.
One alloy daggers that kill the venom have runes on them.
There's so much.
Big thing when we get back to Basgaeth, we find out Violet's second signet.
Yes,
that she is a dream walker.
Yes, which
is a form of intrinsic, which she could be killed for.
But this bothers me, okay? Because this is where, because the whole time they're alluding to how, like, she knows she's going to have a second signet.
Because she has two dragons.
Yeah, and, when Indarna was a little baby, it was to stop time. But they're like, but that's not the signet.
Yeah, that was Indarna's power that she had.
Yes,
and then
like the baby power.
Yes.
But that's not a signet. So they're like, she knows it's a signet. This whole time throughout the book too is Violet is having nightmares, like very vivid
even
nightmares.
Even
in Iron Flame, very vivid nightmares, and it's the same one over and over again. And it's like the nightmare gets extended longer and longer and longer, to where it's like at first it's a snippet, and it's always the sage saying like, you need to give her up because it's time.
You're gonna be mine.
You're gonna be mine, and she can hear a scream in the background, so she always thinks it's Indarna screaming in the background.
She thinks it's her in the dream.
Yes,
and then here
the
we
sage
find
is talking
out
to the
Violet.
Sage is talking to Violet the whole time. It gets extended longer and longer. She figures out right before then, because at some point
she looks down at her hand and she's like Zayden's relic.
Like, that's Zayden's hand. Yeah, she sees the tattoo. It's manly hand. They're sleeping in the same bed together when this happens. She wakes up and she's like, I'm Zayden. And he wakes up from a dream and she's like, oh baby, you had a nightmare, me too.
And then they talk about their dream.
Yeah, he was like, what's your dream? And she was like, oh honey, it was this and this, but it was weird because I was you. And he just freezes up. He's like, that wasn't your dream, that's my dream.
Me. And like, you changed my dream. So we don't actually know like the extent of her power yet with that, and if it's just gonna stay dream walking,
right,
or if it's gonna turn into like you can walk into other people's minds.
Well, that's why you can be killed for it, because like because in the dream, he gets down to the earth because we find out the scream isn't Andarna, it's her and Violet in the background screaming. And Xaden is like, in order to protect her, I need to draw from the earth. So he's about
like
to pull down.
basically replaying the scene that he had in Iron Flame at the end. So
Yes.
he dreamed it, all of Iron Flame.
Yes.
Did it, and
Yes.
then is now dreaming about it
Again.
afterwards.
But he's like, right as I was reaching down to take out power, Violet is like, don't do it, like, you know,
And stopped him.
Yeah, and stopped him. And he like,
So like, can she manipulate the dreams
can she manipulate the dreams? And
is it just going to be dreams?
right. And so
where do we go from this? You
but they
don't
were
know
like-
though, because everyone's killed that has any sort of mind power.
exactly.
So that's why like Xaden's is secret that he's can read intentions because
Yes.
he would be killed for it.
killed for it. Now they tested it because she was like,
had
that
another
might
dream.
not be it. And they mentioned this dream like way earlier on. It's one of those things that it's like a little snippet, and you're like, what
You're
is
like, that
this?
doesn't make sense. That
because
doesn't
it's
seem like
about
it would be
Kat's
her.
best friend.
Yeah.
Right? And you're
But
like,
they figure out it was Marin's nightmare.
Yes.
And they also tag onto that is that it's usually nightmares that she's walking into.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because like that's when you're most
maybe
vulnerable.
powerful, vulnerable.
Who knows? Yeah. But so they test it. She was like, he was like, have you been in anyone else's dream or is it always mine? She's like, you know what? There is this one time I was in Marin's
go
dream.
ask.
Yeah. Where like there was a fire and a portrait. Let's go ask. So she was like, I'm going to go downstairs, knock on her dorm. And she's like, Marin, I need to ask you a question. You can't ask me anything out of it. And she was like,
Yeah.
okay. And she was like, do you have a portrait of your family? And she's like, I did or something. And it burned up, whatever.
It was always my biggest nightmare that it would burn.
Yes. And she was like, I've been in that nightmare.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, you're a dream walker. The reason I hate this is because to me, this feels, I don't, it's the first time it's ever mentioned. And that bothers me.
Yes.
Everything is so convenient.
Well, but also all the other signets are, I don't learn about them until someone talks about their
bothers
signet.
me. I don't know why it bothers me because it's like, okay, lightning. I think I said this in either Fourth Wing or Iron Flame recap of like everything is so convenient, and I don't love that. I like some struggle. So like for example, she's got brittle bone
She also
disease.
didn't know that she had the signet until right now.
Right.
She didn't know it manifested yet.
But it's
and
like
Andarna's
everything.
like, it has.
Yeah, she's like, ooh, yeah.
Just kidding.
But that's the thing. Oh, and the other dragons knew. The other dragons knew when they tapped into Andarna. They were like, you gave her a power.
They did. That's also why they were upset with her.
They were, and Violet's like, what's the power?
What's
Does someone want to tell
happening?
me? And they're like, no, you'll find out. You'll find out soon enough. So the other dragons know about it. But what I think what bothers me is the convenience factor of like, okay, not only does she already have lightning, which is one of the 6,
right?
Not only does her boyfriend have one that's the most powerful, then
and he's Intrinsic,
and their
she's
dragons
now
are mated.
Intrinsic.
Yeah, their dragons are
It's like
mated.
a powerhouse,
and it's
thing.
like, and they're like, and the Andarna species is like, this is one of the most
This
powerful.
is pure magic.
I'm like, surprise, surprise! Like
Everyone's magic.
Everyone's got this. Yay! Like another one. Okay.
Yeah.
She's special. We get it. Like that's where I had a. That's where I felt like this was pulled out of thin air. I was like,
okay.
You know, I was like, where are we going with this? And I'm sure, I know she's got a reason for it. But when I was reading it, my first thought was, how convenient. How convenient. Because the other thing that we find out, oh, nope, not yet. We're not there yet, is, like I said, there's a lot of Easter eggs. So now, when she finds out about her signet, what happens after this part? Is this where Theophany?
Yeah, so Wyvern and Venom attack Eratia. So they go back to Besgythe, and then this is the other thing. They just keep beep bopping around the whole book. And you're like, where are we at? Nope, we're not there.
And it's sometimes the Venom attack, sometimes they don't. When they came back, they were terrified to go over right before they got into Xaden's territory. They're like, where'd the Venom?
Poor Emil's like Venom are out.
And no one came after them. So they're like, oh, that was easy.
Weird. But then they go and attack Eratia, which is Xaden's home, and Theophany sends like a note.
A letter.
Yeah.
She was like, hey, she's like, I saw your flyby. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go there. One of the Irids comes back and helps fire that ward stone so that Eratia can have wards.
Yes.
And that's how they defeat the Venom and the Wyverns that time.
Yeah. And this dragon that comes back is one of the ones that was the 3 that stayed behind and listened. We find out they're related.
Andarna's
Grandpa?
Sure.
I don't know.
They're in the same den.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, family tree.
They're like in the same family.
Yes, so that's
and
why
he
came
says,
back.
"Hey, I want to bring you back." And so Andarna goes with him, but has to break her bond with Violet.
Yes, that was.
And that's where like they say when a dragon dies, the rider dies. It's because the bond is breaking, but they broke it.
Yeah.
Violet survives. Yay.
Because that's a note. That's one of the what do you call it?
It's like the very first epigraph. Like a rider without a dragon is, or a dragon without a rider is sad, but a rider without his dragon is dead.
But then in this chapter, right before she breaks the bond, this one thing I kind of don't love is sometimes I love how what are they called? Epigraph. I was gonna say epitaph. Epigraph are sometimes foreshadowing like very blatantly, and other times it's like, ooh, I like it when they're more mysterious. There was one where it opened up where it's like, we never said a dragon couldn't break its bond, and you're like, oh, and then she breaks her bond. So you're like, I was like, so you knew going into this chapter it was going to happen, but it was still sad because it was heartbreaking. But like, and Darna's like, yeah, I want to know my friends. Peace out.
Well, but she was also really sad about it.
Yes.
Like they did have a bond, but like a special bond of Violet was very emotionally attached to Darna, and all of that, and so.
But she was like, there's a hope that you can come back. Like after you learn your ways, if you choose to, you could still come back and we can rebond.
Yes.
And so, and Darna leaves to goes back because she wants to learn. She breaks her bond and departs. And then at this point, Theophany is like, I'm done waiting.
Yes. So this is where she sends a messenger in the form of Garrick and Garrick's like bloody from battle.
Yes.
They were fighting Venin and he, like, everyone dies but Garrick, and Garrick comes back to be like, she sent me as a messenger. You need to bring the brother.
Bring the brother.
Because I have your sister. So she took Mira and is like holding her hostage. And says you need to come to Drathis.
She sends a message to Xaden because that's why she says brother. You bring your brother for her sister. So it was a message to him that they both read. Yeah,
but they were both there
because that's when it starts to get important of like brother.
Yes.
And that's why, because the whole time they're like which brother?
But which brother? Is it Brennan? Is it Jack Barlow, who's his brother because he's a Venin now? Is it Bodhi? Who's basically his brother?
That's who I thought it was initially. It's very clear that it's Jack, but when I was listening to it, I'm like, well, just give Bodhi.
But maybe they're talking about the brother that turns Venin.
Yes.
So
Xaden's like, all right, you need Jack.
So they go to Drathis, and it's basically, that's where all of his nightmares have been happening. So they're like, if we go, we know this is a trap. We have to devise a plan. And they're like, Violet, you can't. She's always trying to save everybody.
Yes.
And they're like, Violet, you have to stay on task. You have a task. We all have tasks. We have to trust each other and go from there.
Because they know that Theophany knows that about her.
Yes.
And so they're like, the way we know that this is a trap, the way it's a trap is if you try to save everyone, that's how you die.
That's going to die. Yeah.
Like she knows this about you. And she's like, okay, so I can't save everyone. I have to trust that everyone's going to do their part. And so you got like Rhiannon and Sawyer and everyone fighting.
Yep. And they're fighting. They're in a battle. She goes and heads up against Theophany, who has Mira, and they bring, this part gets misty for me because they bring Jack, but then Jack doesn't arrive yet.
They have Jack in like a cupboard that's locked.
In the Reich box.
I have no idea.
In the same box they had the Venin in Iron Flame.
Yes, that
so he couldn't
out.
Channel.
Yes.
Yeah. So they bring him in that, and then Theophany's like, I never said I would keep your sister alive. I just said you could see her. And then she slits her throat. I secretly, don't hate me, wanted Mira to die.
Because Mira knows Xaden's Venin. She already knows at this point because she's like, I'm gonna kill him, whatever. But yeah,
the reason why I say that is because Brennan brings her back to life. They use Sloane's siphoning power to siphon through Dane, which Dane has a hot moment there. And he goes like, Sloane, look at me.
Oh, that's like, because Dane. I 100% think Dane and Sloane are a thing. Yeah, are gonna be a thing. She's like hot and bothered by him. Yeah, they're like,
she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're Violet and Xaden 2.0. Like, she's siphoning. They both have a touch element. It's just like, oh, handsy. Yeah. But yeah, so they do have. That was really hot. I'm not gonna lie. When he was like, look,
he's like, look at me.
I'm like,
eyes here, and you're like, yes, they're here.
I was like, I knew you had it in you, Dane. I knew.
Yeah.
I love you. But anyways,
went from awkward cousin kiss to
yeah, that it is true. And so yeah, it's like everything is being used to save Mira.
Which I was like, I feel like you should just let her die.
I was like, where's Theophany in this? Theophany's like, I'm waiting.
She's like hanging.
Yeah, like that's the weird thing. Is like there's this whole moment where it's like everyone is crowding around Mira to save her, and Theophany's like, I'm just here until when you're ready. Let me know.
Yeah. So then Violet goes to fight Theophany. They chit the chats because, you know, every good villain has to like talk about why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
She gives a whole bunch of information about, yes, I'm a priestess of Dune. That's why I've lived forever. My friend Paprika really wants Zayden. I don't know. I forgot his name. It's the other Venom that wants Zayden. He's not smart. I want your Irid.
Yeah.
I want Andarna. Whatever. All of this stuff. And then
They capture...
she starts... Do they capture who?
Oh, okay.
She starts like draining from the ground and says, either you drain with me or I'm going to kill you because I'm going to drain you. And she like hops up on a wyvern.
No, someone's dead.
And Sigale
catches
her.
They killed the guy that wanted the dragon eggs.
Yes.
Because...
That wanted the dragon eggs?
Yes, there was a random guy...
Random guy? Are you talking about a Venom that wanted dragon eggs?
There was a guy at the end that like betrayed...
Zayden.
No.
Zayden took some dragon eggs.
No. So
for sure.
What I'm thinking about, who is it? That's what I was trying to read. I'm like, what's happening? Because when they bring Jack in that cabinet and whatever, who's the guy that...
It's a Venom. And
it's a Venom who did that?
Yeah.
Because, so someone dies because there's a body on the ground.
Panchek.
Okay, that's who it is.
Panchek is the commandant of the Riders Quadrant, and he's actually secretly... Do we know if he's
a
Venom?
Who he is, though.
No.
When they said that, I'm like, who is he? I don't remember him.
He's leadership. And he's apparently been being a go-between between the Venom and Basgaith. Like, how did Theophany know where they were all the time? How did they keep having these meetups?
Because that was another thing.
He's like a mole, but is he a Venom?
But they were also... And here's where I'm fuzzy on this random element. Wasn't there also like Venom amongst people in the war college?
When they had their first Venom attack, it's because they were like in the college already. Yeah. And they were like dressed as scribes. So, and Jack said something like, us, the initiates and ASIMs can feel each other. Yeah. Because we're supposed to be sought out by a sage to train us. But you would have Maves and sages all around this college and not be able to know who they are because they can like disguise themselves or not disguise themselves.
I have no idea about that.
She like put that out there and then was like, okay, but we're not gonna talk about it.
Right. So that's like, when
who's
Panchek,
been a Venom?
Right. So that's when Panchek was a betrayer. I was like, okay, I guess he was one.
He was a Venom, but we don't get that confirmation.
We don't know. Either. And so he dies, and then he has a dragon, right? Because the dragon dies too. Because that's who she jumps on top of. So when Theophany is starting to channel from the earth.
She jumps on top of a wyvern.
Okay, that's what it is.
I was like, and Panchek are off with Zayden.
Okay.
And now we get that in his point of view.
Now, Taryn's trapped right now, isn't it? Because Theophany does trap.
He is trapped. Taryn went and took Mira's dragon away from the battle, and then he gets trapped.
Okay.
But Sigale saves Violet.
Okay.
She like jumps on the wyvern, and then Sigale like grabs her in the claws. He's like, "Hi."
Yeah, she's like, hands out.
Yep.
Okay, yes. Okay, so that's when Theophany is like, I always think of like, I don't know, like Hulk smash on the ground. Yeah. And it's like absorbing it, and it's coming her way.
Yes.
And then she jumps on the wyvern because it's already dead. So you can't suck power out of something already dead. Holds out her hands.
Sigale saves her.
Has a Titanic moment. King of the world. Picks her up.
But then
they get trapped again.
They get trapped. Man, that's a lot. Yeah.
It is, because then Zayden's like, no one touches my dragon. Like he's livid that Sigale is
now
trapped.
We have you jump to different people's points of view though. And then you come back.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Girl, y'all.
So you jump to Rhiannon's point of view.
The last 5 chapters,
y'all. 5 chapters. You jump to Rhiannon's point of view, which all that happens with that is seeing that she knows things, and like she knows how to be a leader or a military leader, and that the battle is raging on. Then you point to Imogen's point of view right after that, and you find out she's an earth wielder.
Yeah.
And she is going to get Quinn, who's the astral projector lady.
That's her
girlfriend. Who's her best friend. Not girlfriend, but like best friend.
Best friend.
But Imogen is a lesbian.
No, Imogen and Garrick.
No, Quinn, her friend, is a lesbian.
Quinn is a lesbian.
But Imogen and Garrick. Imogen loves Garrick.
They're like
love.
Yeah, that's the one. Because isn't it Riddick that's like, why don't they sleep with each other already?
Yes.
Okay, that was.
He says things like that.
Okay, so yeah. This
Jumps
is that
to
last
her
one.
Point
You're
of
just like
view,
boom, 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 boom.
She gets killed by a
Quinn
Venom.
does.
Quinn does, and she's like dying, and this is where I cried Because she's like, first of all, longest death scene ever. Like, I love you, Quinn, but die.
Yeah.
But she just like said so many things that I was like, I was in my chiropractor's office and I was like listening to it while I was doing a therapy and was like,
that it was really sad. It was
really sad.
It was a really well done scene. It was sad. It was sad because it was also a character that I'm like not invested in at all. And I was like,
and that was the weird choice of like, we've only gotten Xaden's point of views and now we got Rhiannon's, which didn't seem to matter. No. Like, I could have done without that whole scene. Yeah. Imogen's though was good.
Well, you know why all the different perspectives, right?
No. Why?
I think it's to kind of make the ending. It's one of those, like, it's a whodunit. It's like, who's missing? You're trying to count all the characters.
Oh, that's true, because two people are all separated. Because in the end of Imogen's, Garrick walks out and he can't really distance wield anymore because he's already like...
He's exhausted. He's depleted.
He's burnt out.
Oh, because he's been going back and forth, like, pulling people, right? Because he can pull people with him.
Yes.
And so he's been, like, getting people out.
So that's the thing is... Did he walk out and distance field again and pull from the source? Does he become the brother that they're talking about?
Right. Because at this point, because so that's kind of the perspective. Because Rhiannon is with someone as well. I don't remember who. It's like every perspective, someone's missing.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rhiannon's with someone. I can't remember who. Is it Sawyer?
Yeah. Yes.
I think Rhiannon's with Sawyer.
And the rest of the squad.
Because Sawyer's back on a dragon.
Or she's with Arik.
She's with Arik? Mm-hmm. Okay, I was gonna say it's like a guy and girl in every different area, and then except for Quinn.
And then Violet was with Bodhi at one point, trying to fight Theophany, and we find out Bodhi's not strong enough to counteract Theophany, and so it's like, oh, could he have pulled from the source to also fight Theophany? So there's a lot of questions of who pulled, who's now a brother, because it also says who's known that Xaden has been a Venom the whole time and like seen him go through this.
Yes.
Is it Brennan? Did he pull to save Mira?
There's a lot.
Is it
right? Because that's the part that we're alluding to is at the end. There's we get the last perspectives, all these different perspectives of the fight.
And Violet's at the very end.
Xaden's and Violet's at the very end. At the very very end, Sigale, Taryn are trapped. I think Violet. So
it goes to Xaden's point of view.
Yeah,
I think
Violet.
After this.
Violet is facing Theophany.
Or she's not there yet. Because you get it kind of from both views.
Well, they're different places.
Yes.
Violet is facing off with Theophany with Sigale and Taryn trapped. Xaden's off over here with the Sage.
With the Sage.
Living out his dream. Living out his nightmare that he's been having the entire book. He hears Violet screaming in the background.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. And all of a sudden, and Violet is finally starting to kick Theophany's butt. And then all of a sudden... this wall of shadow just comes at them. Yeah. And destroys everything. Every wyvern, every venom. But it also helps
her channel to actually kill Theophany. Because she can channel and find the lightning and find Theophany in it.
Because we come to find out that the great thing about Lilith and her storm wielding is that she could help create a storm that would help Violet be able to use it. Well, same thing with Theophany, but also...
So she like uses her own storm against her.
Uses her storm against her, but also Xaden is helping in this element. And Violet knows, as the wall's coming, she knows Xaden is no longer...
Yeah, he's full Venom.
He's full Venom. Like, she knows. As the wall comes, she's like...
Drank the Kool-Aid a little too much at this point.
Yes, and when it washes over her, the shadows wash over her, she can feel in that mist of shadow like a caress against her, because all the books he can like touch with his shadows somehow, and all she thinks in her head is I love your
shadows.
I know a whole other fantasy's opening up, but she like thinks out loud, I love you, I forgive you, or whatever she says, like I love you, or like you're still the same person. I don't know. It washes over her, everyone dies, everything, and she just knows Xaden is no longer with us in this room. Only full-on Venom. Yeah. So she goes that. Then it cuts to all these different people's perspectives. Yes. And at the same time, like as everyone is having these perspectives, like the shadows come over. So everyone at this point knows. Everyone. I mean, everyone knows. Yeah. Xaden is a Venom because like he's the only shadow wielder. And then it cuts to Xaden's point of view where he is living this out. He can hear Violet and he's like, I have to do this. I have to. There's no other choice. I'm already know I'm going to give into it. So he makes the conscious decision to pull and give his shadows away. And he says the same thing. He's like, I could feel her because he kind of goes like feral whenever he's like tapping in. And so he's like going insane because he's like, no one hurts my drag. Like Sigale was a tipping point, not Violet. Because it says like the second Sigale is trapped, he was like, oh, you done messed up. So he's like, he's going feral. The shadows are going everywhere. And he's like, and in that I could hear Violet saying, I love you, I forgive you, whatever. He's like, so I found her, caressed her through the shadows, and then killed everything.
Yeah.
Okay, boom. Then it cuts to...
Well, she kills Theophany.
Yeah, kills
with
Theophany.
Like a dagger of the Temple of Dune in it. And that's where you find out Auric actually has precognition.
Which I called that. I saw that one actually.
Yeah, because he told her to protect the Temple of Dune at one time. And then he gives her this present and is like, you'll want for when you lose yours, because she loses her alloy hilted daggers. But this is what kills Theophany, because she used to be a priestess of Dune. And this is like Dune getting back at tainting the priesthood or whatever.
Right.
So she dies.
Arc
so that's one problem I had with this book too, of like this big bad that you've been building up this whole book that has all this information. You just we're done.
Yep.
And we bebopped around a little too much and we didn't get all the information.
It was crazy. Yeah, you find out Arc is precog, so he can see the future.
But then the last chapter,
very different than General Melgren. It's even more powerful than General Melgren.
Yes, because
General Melgren is a precog of
only
war.
And when he killed all the rebellion people, he kind of tainted himself because he didn't remember that there was a protection against the kids. And that's why he can only see when there's less than 3.
So that's why.
So they made a rule.
Yeah. They're like a traitor.
They're just cheating at this point.
It's weird. It's weird. And so we find that out. And so then she blacks out.
Yep.
Like after the shadow, she blacks out. And then opening last chapter is
she doesn't know why she's on the steps of Eratia.
Yeah,
I think it's there. Or
steps of Eratia, because her brother Brennan runs out and he was like, "Where have you been?"
Yes,
and she's like, "What you mean?"
She's like, "I've been here," and he's like,
"No,
missing for like
12
3
hours."
days.
Oh, I thought it was only 12 hours.
She's been missing for days, but she doesn't know what. Well, no, maybe
it was it was only like a few hours. Oh, not few. It was like 12 hours. Because there's like. War ends, everyone's celebrating because they know they've won. Like the wardstones are in place, all the venom have been killed, all the wyvern have been killed right now.
They're done.
But they also know that Xaden is out. Everyone's celebrating, getting drunk, having fun. Brennan runs out to her, like, "Where you been, Loca?" And she's like, "What do you mean? I've been here this whole time." And he was like, "No, it's been like 12 hours since the end. Like, where have you been? There's a couple of people missing." She has no idea. Yeah, he's like, "There's a couple of people missing.
People missing. 6 eggs are stolen, and then other riders are murdered."
Yeah.
Like, but they don't tell us which riders are murdered, number one. They tell us that Garrick, Xaden, and Bodhi are missing.
She wakes up with that ring and she's like, I must have gotten married. When did that happen?
Married.
And she looks at, I don't know what happens to where she like looks at Imogen and Imogen is just like stone cold. She's like, you asked for this. Now, when did the brother comment? Where did the brother comment come?
The brother comment came in when Xaden was battling.
POV, we do. Right? Okay.
When Xaden was battling his sage guy. And he says something about like the brother that is now a part of us or something like I don't remember
brother by choice or something.
Something like that.
And Xaden looks over and there's a guy.
There's Panchak, but that's Panchak.
Yeah, but then there's someone.
I don't think so.
There is because Xaden's like, how could you? Like, not in his mind, he's like, so Xaden looks over and there's now a new Venom. And he's like, and he's in shock because he's like, mentally he's thinking this of like, this guy's seen me go through all this. He's seen me struggle. He chose this and you don't know who it is.
You don't know who it is.
Because there's multiple men missing.
There's multiple men missing or like you don't know where they are when the book wraps. Like Garrick walked out. Bodhi just is not there anymore. Auric is also, he had the note, but that's it. Brennan, Brennan's standing right there. So Brennan's not Brennan's there. But you don't know who this new brother is.
I think they named those 3 specifically somewhere of like Garrick's missing, Xaden's gone, and so and so.
Maybe.
So those are 3 names that they mentioned.
In an interview, Rebecca said to take note of who the brother is. They're like, who is the brother? And she said, I would pay attention to who's missing at the end.
Yes.
And who feels like they never get what they deserve.
And so you know who
wants power.
Well, you know who I've seen the theory and I agree with? Who do you think it is?
I think it's Bodhi.
So when I was reading it, that was my first thought. And then I saw a theory of like, who do I think it is? a lot of people are saying Sawyer's missing.
Oh.
And the whole book, he's been struggling because he doesn't have a leg and
like,
he has to accommodate.
Yes.
And there's a point where he is, like Violet's like, you can talk to your dragon and your dragon will make accommodations, because Taryn makes accommodations for her. Taryn always leans his leg down so she can like slide down it
and
to dismount.
A
saddle, buckles in, and he's like, no, I'm not above that. He just is like, I would be a disgrace. I would be asking them to be a disgrace. And Violet's like, Taryn, do you think you're a disgrace? He's like, he goes,
just
I am the son of every single time.
He goes into like his whole
old
lineage,
man
and
spiel.
Like, I am the second largest dragon. She's like, okay, so it's a no.
No, but so Sawyer's been like wrestling with that, and at the very end, he finally gets on his dragon because he's a metal wielder. He has like created a special,
he's created a harness,
and a leg as well that can. So it's an adaptive leg that he's like, I can do this. Gets on the dragon, is able to keep his seat and everything. And so he did it.
Mentioned at the end,
but he's not mentioned at the end. And I didn't take note because I noted because I remember there are some names mentioned, because those are like, oh, that's who I first thought of. Like I first thought Bodhi. I don't know why.
Because the whole book, he's also like, I don't want to be left at home because I'm your heir. Because Zayden's like basically teeing up everything. Right.
And Zayden's
for someone else
like,
to
stay behind.
Yeah.
Bodhi's like, no, I want to be a warrior, not a king.
And he doesn't have a second signet, so like we don't know that he has a second signet. Like he's not been chosen to have a second signet by the dragons.
I don't know.
That's why I think it's Bodhi.
I know. But
also Bodhi or Sawyer hasn't known that Zayden's a Venin this whole time.
And it is
somebody. It has to be somebody that's like seen him go through it for a longer amount of time than like. Which
it would have been Bodhi, but it's so interesting to me, and the only reason, because that's who I first thought. The only reason it'd be a surprise to me is because Bodhi has been so adamant of being a dragon rider and being like a warrior. He's like, I'm here as your, like, I have a role, I have a purpose. So part of me wonders if like he didn't want to be Duke because he knew that Zayden is now full Venin at this point. So like while the Shadow Wall's coming, maybe he was like, oh crap, I need to be next to him in that too.
Why would he marry Violet and give her Tyrandor? Is it because Bodhi turned and he can no longer be?
That's a good point.
This is where we go deep and get crazy.
Here's another thing that's kind of weird is I don't know if they mention it in the book or if I just read it in theories, but like, that Zayden had been preparing to propose for a long time because the ring has
from
a
stone
of a
from
missing,
like the sword of Tyrandor,
and they knew it was missing,
and it had all the stones. And there's like a distinct point in the book where like Violet goes, "Oh, a stone's missing. That's weird," and then like walks away.
And he's like,
"And it is the stone." She's
like,
"Oh, it's the stone from the sword," and she pulls it together.
And she was like, "There's no way he made this in the last 12 hours." I think he just
had plans for when he went full Venin, and if Bodhi couldn't do his job. I think he just like had plans on plans.
Oh, see, I thought he had made the ring because he was like, I see, because also at the end of the book, before he pulls, he was like, if I make it this many days, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it was something like 76 days 76, or something.
And he was 3 days short.
Yeah, and she was like, forget it, let's go at it. And that was a good chapter.
Yeah.
A good scene.
That's when shadows were used.
Shadows were used in all the ways. But, so he's like, so I thought he was making the ring because he was like, I did it. I can see a future with her. Like he hadn't given up hope.
Okay.
But then also at the same time, I think he seems the kind of person that has backup plans.
Yes.
Like, either or, like, I will make her my wife. And he mentions it a lot in the book. So I think he had always was like, she is going to be my wife no matter what, even if she's the wife of an evil Venin, whatever. Again, they're 20 years old. It's so interesting. But anyway, so now she is the Duchess
of Tyrandor.
Which they've alluded to a couple of times because he's also called her his consort at different islands, and so it's
he said consort.
So I think there's a lot of foreshadowing
when they did the marriage thing. He's like, her name's Sorengale. You can write it down as 2 R's.
He's like, I'll take her last name.
Yeah.
I was like,
they're like Roaring
no, I like Ryerson.
We hyphenate.
Yeah, I was like, no. So it's alluded to a lot. So it wasn't surprising to me that at the end she like I was like, okay, I see that. But the brother, I think that's what everyone's like. Who is it? And we won't know. Now. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how we have 2 more books from here on out.
I mean, I feel like she's got to answer all the questions that she brought up.
She does,
like, there's
but like
too many unknowns. And that's where I do not like this book as much as I liked Fourth Wing and Iron Flame because to me, and now thinking about it more, I'm like, I thought it was really good at the beginning.
Yeah.
And while I was reading it, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But then like sitting back and going, okay, like let's think about timeline of what happened in this book. It was just everywhere.
To where if you could not tell from this
from
alone,
this recap.
If you have been able to keep up, good on you, because I have no idea where we came and went.
Honestly, we've actually gone in order of like what's happened in the book.
That's what's crazy to me. We weren't like here, and every time we're like, oh, by the way, here's this other thing. But no, that's how you felt in the book too. You're like, we were in order. Oh yeah, like every time you're like, oh, and he's a precog. You're like, I know we just seem like we threw that out there, but when you're reading it, you're like, oh yeah, like it just felt
very everywhere.
I don't know.
To where, as I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, I don't think it was as amazing. No. I think it was careless.
I felt like I wonder if she was rushed. Even though she had
fun.
A year.
Yeah, she had fun writing it. Yeah. In some points, like the Riddick scenes, I'm like, you're having fun. Riddick is great. In the wedding jabs, like that, you're having fun. But like, it was careless to throw all of this at the wall and just hope it stuck.
Yes.
So that's where I'm like, I don't think I would rate it as high. And I think a lot of the fandom, all the hype that was around it, made people think this has to be amazing. What I'm reading, this craziness that I'm reading has to be good because it's been so long waited for, and it's like,
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. And I think she could have done without a lot. Like I think she needed to pick a lane. And I think it's the whole going back to school. I'm like, pick one. Either school or the islands, but don't do both because it's just like chaotic. Yeah. But I know it's going to be important, but at the same, like, because the Sawyer backstory, that's why I think it's Sawyer, because I'm like, they did focus a lot, but he also, you bring up a great point. He did not know. So I don't know, but I don't know if she knows that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She has plans, but she also doesn't write the books. She writes them in like succession. She's like, I'm going to write another, because she also writes contemporary novels on. Otherwise,
right. She says she's like taking a break from this for like 2 years, right?
Yeah, she like has written all of those. She just started doing the fantasy.
Yeah,
and so she said, "I'm going to write another contemporary, and then I will write book 4." So we don't know when it's going to come out. I feel like it's going to be like
3 years from now.
It's going to be a long time.
I feel like 3 years from now. I feel like we will all come back from it 3 years, reread it, and be like just as confused.
Yeah,
I feel like I could read this maybe 4 or 5 times. I honestly. I'm going to be honest.
It's either it's going to be a work of art because by book 5 she's going to tie everything up and we're going to be
That's where I think J.K. Rowling, like it all came full circle. You're like,
it's going to be like a J.K. Rowling thing of like, oh girl, you put that in book 1. Hello.
Yes.
So it's either going to be a work of art like that or we're going to be like, yeah, book
Dumpster
3.
Fire.
What happened?
Yeah.
And
that's when jump. What do they call it? Jumping the shark. Yeah. When you're just.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
No idea.
I don't know.
I feel like she's got to answer a lot of stuff. But she also did give fans what they wanted. They wanted answers to this stuff. They wanted to see more of the politics. They wanted to see the Isle Kingdoms. Yeah. They wanted to see this. They wanted to see that. But it's just a lot in one book.
It is. It's so much.
To where I'm like, I feel like we would have gotten half that in this book, and in book 4 gotten the rest.
I think that's what I'm saying is like, when she initially started this, I thought in book 2,
this whole book was going to be like, Isle Kingdoms find the 7th breed, not all these other little battles with Venin.
And that, yes.
Like,
and I
agree. Get a break from Venin for a second.
Because you're also still learning. That's the hard thing, is this book had so much learning in it as well that I'm like, I don't know. And so that's the hard thing for me is I think it's too much. It's just too much. It's all at once. I think this could have been it could have gone 2 separate ways. I think you could have wrapped up this whole book in 3 books, but not gone into the whole Isles, all this stuff. And it would have been well-rounded. I think you would have had the enemies to lovers in the first book, Xaden becoming Venin in the second, and either finding a cure or in book 3. That would have been one. Or you make this 7 to 9 thrown a glass length series and you really give each book what it deserves. So like Iron Flame would have been 2 and 3. Yeah, Iron Flame would have been 2 books. This would have been 2 books. Like, but the way it's done right now, so much that I'll tell you this, like, I could reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame multiple times and still love it. I don't have a desire to read this. I almost want to just listen to like, what is it? Fantasy Fangirls. Yeah. Podcast? Like there's some really good podcasts that go we'll spend weeks and months going into that. I'd almost rather spend my time listening to other people than investing in this book again. Cause I feel like I will still be confused. I need other smarter people to break it down for me who've really spent time in this. I'm not willing to give the time to rereading this book and diving into it because I felt like it was too chaotic. So I'm excited to listen to other people going through it. That's what the thing that made me sad about this book is like, I don't have a desire to reread it 3 or 4 times like I do Fourth Wing and Iron Flame.
And that's the fun thing about some books is you read it once and you're like, this was great. Yeah. I want to read it again. And now that you know the ending, you find all the Easter eggs and that's fun. But this one, I feel like I'm going to have to reread just to actually comprehend what's happening.
Yep. It's like the movie Inception.
Yes.
I'm like, I still don't know what happened in Inception. I still have zero idea. And I've watched it a couple of times. I feel like this is my Inception versus Iron Flame. I like going reading because I see like, ooh, this. And same with Fourth Wing. I'm like, those Easter eggs are fun.
It was fun to read again. It's just like I read Harry Potter all the time because I find more things and it's enjoyable.
It's crazy. I can't believe how much. Yeah.
This one I'm like, and maybe I'll have a different answer in a couple years.
Maybe we'll eat our words in 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? For me, it was not a 4 or 5 star like everyone's saying. I'm like I said, when I initially read this, I said 3.5. And I said, it might go up or down as I unpack it. As the more I unpack it, for me, it actually goes down.
It goes down because it feels careless to me.
It does. Yeah. It like you said, people are like, this is either genius or careless. I err on the side of careless. Yeah. I think it was, you gave into what people wanted. Like, you need to know where your sentence is going. You can't just be like, I'm just going to wing it. Like, that's what I feel like is like, you don't know where it's going. And I get that's every author. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I
feel like she might have lost half the fandom with this book.
I'm very curious. I haven't seen a whole lot of reactions because I've wanted to kind of formulate my own opinions. So I'm going to really dive into it afterwards.
Now that I've read it though and like kind of sat in it, I've seen people's reactions and I'm like, I agree. Like I was trying to feel, our friend was like, oh, I thought it was amazing. And I was like, I thought it was interesting. Yes. And when Jeff asked me like, well, what did you think of it? I'm like, I thought it was good, but there's a lot.
There's a lot.
And I asked him, like, did you reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame before this? And he's like, no, I listened to a recap because I didn't have time to listen to the other two books. And I said, okay. And I was like, you might be confused.
I was like, and I did listen to it.
I reread them. Yeah. And I was even confused. Yeah. I listened to podcasts that broke everything down and deep dived.
You did.
And I was still confused.
I saw like there is almost you needed like family trees and peoples.
You needed charts.
I needed like a visual the entire time of like who's who, which actually could be really helpful. You know, there are so many names and so many.
And start
the map,
charting.
But I'm like, there's like 100 characters, and I'm like, I can't, and I'm sure we're gonna get introduced to so much more.
Useless. Like some of the first years got mentioned, and then they never got mentioned again. I'm like, then why did you tell me their name?
And then the first year who got shadows, you're like, who's that? And why is he special?
I think it starts with an L, I don't know. Luca, maybe. Not Lyra. Lyra is one of the first 6.
Who's Lyra?
He's one of the ones that they had their journal from Iron Flame.
Girl, I don't know. I still think Dane is Dean, and I don't know. Yeah. All I know is like, look, I will read 4 or 5, and if she accepts, of course I am.
I'm gonna read it.
Because, like you said, maybe she's a genius in the end of it. I just was not impressed with this. Like, I thought it was cool. I read it quickly. I like it. I'm still in it. I listened to it quickly. I don't know why I said I read it. I listened to it quickly, but at the end of the day, no.
Yeah.
Final thought is
I'm hopeful for books 4 and 5, but I'm hopeful to see where they go, but also like very cautious.
Yeah.
Of like what's going to happen.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Or cautiously pessimistic. Either way, there's caution there. Yeah.
I'm excited to maybe reread it. Yeah. Read this book again to maybe pick up on things that I missed. Yeah. But I'm also just like, oh, there's a lot.
There's so much.
Yeah. I feel like my rating of this book would be a 3.
Okay.
Because I have desire to read again because the world is great and I like this series.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not my favorite in the series.
Agreed. I'm kind of concerned that this is one of those of like
it can make or break the series.
It can make or break. Mm-hmm. And this is already one I can tell you it's like, oh, whenever it's all said and done, I'm going to be like, you're going to love it, but book 3, not my favorite. Yeah. Like you can already I can already say that about this. Mm-hmm. Sully, I need you to be very quiet. Stop it. No, sit down. Okay? Okay. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm like, this is going to be the one. I'm like, read the series, but 3, you're going to not love.
Either you won more people or you lost half your fandom.
Exactly.
I'm not really sure.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah. So, anyways, we're excited that if you haven't read it and you listened to this whole thing, I'm very sorry because we probably confused you even more than if you had just read it by yourself. If you read it and this made sense, maybe I don't know.
we synopsised it.
Yeah, we did it. We kept it in order, okay?
Yes.
But we're really grateful that you listened to this. Leave comments of how you felt about it if you listened to it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join us on this chaotic journey. But we're very excited that you stayed with us. Thank you for listening. Beth, thank you for being on our show. We're very excited
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.